It's like the nicest day ever. I mean, not really, but after the cold snap, doesn't it feel like it?
Lovely.
It's just been amazing.
Yeah. I want a dog. I'm shopping for a dog. So I'm just putting it out there in the universe. I'm telling everybody that I know. So if you know any breeders of Aussies, let me know.
Is that the kind of dog Arlene has?
No, I think she has Gordon Setter
Oh,
or
yeah.
or something.
There we go. Yeah, I'm either want an Australian Shepherd, Australian Cattle Dog, or kind of like a Black Lab Aussie mix. Or an Aussie Mini. I'm contemplating mini version. Mini me, mini dog. Maybe let's just give it like 2 minutes. How about that? Is everyone okay? I mean, I would hate for.
I'll run upstairs now.
Yeah.
How's everyone doing? Let's do a quick check-in.
Steady on. It's a steady on time of year.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Stores are okay?
I think so.
Any new members for Purple Carrot, Darlene?
We gained 3 new owners for October. So it slowed down after the farmers market. And I don't know if the election would have anything to do with it or not, but so we're working right now on just trying to get visible.
Mm-hmm.
If we can't do it in person, so we're looking at like window clings, and we're looking at some more signage for our building.
That's creative.
Signage is always a good investment, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Joan, how's it going up in Ideal?
Well, I haven't been too involved lately with the co-op, so since I'm not on the board anymore and not volunteering right now. So anyways, as far as I can tell, and from people I've talked to, things are going well. And I know that they're getting geared up for Thanksgiving and having a lot of promotional things right now for that. But as far as I know, things are going well, so.
Good.
Yeah.
I texted and emailed Jennifer, but I don't have the contact information for the, what's her name, for the manager of the Crow Wing Food Co-op.
I'm drawing a blank on her name, but I did just send them an email as well with the Zoom link to the general email that they have. And
I'll
Jennifer.
mute myself and let Swan start, and I will try to find their number.
Sounds good.
They could be invited directly from this too if we have a better number than general email, because you know I know I don't check my email real frequently because I'm not working anymore.
I wish I could say the same. All right. Do you see the agenda here?
Yes.
Is it big enough to read?
Uh-huh. Yep.
Okay. So basically introductions, but I feel like we all kind of really know each other. We might just go ahead and skip that part if that's okay, unless someone really feels
Sure.
that we need to. So I'll spend a little time. I'd like to do a little bit of the audit recap and have some group discussion and kind of review the audit process and the materials that we use, because those are all takeaways from this, should you choose to complete another audit in the future. I guess I'll just need to confirm the email contacts from Crow Wing and Ideal Green that would like to have the materials sent to. And I want to just be respectful of that, so that so I don't just broadcast it to someone at the board that you don't want to see or anything like that. So so that'll be important to know where the materials get sent. And Stacy, maybe you can get that information from me in follow up. And then a little discussion about what went well. Things with scoring and the technology. Obviously, we didn't do a face-to-face, which is really unique. And maybe we could talk about whether or not that worked and didn't, and what could be improved in the future. And then I'll go into like a high-level score summary presentation and next steps. So I'll discuss the highs and low scores for each store, and then any comments that were noteworthy in both the positive and the areas to improve. And then the next steps would be, how do we communicate these scores and this process to various audiences that we might want to reach? So staff, the board, and owner members. And then a little bit about how to create action plans for improvement based on what the audit what the audit discovers. And then other potential uses of audit results, which is basically just a slide that I had in my very first presentation to the group. And then a little wrap up on what are the next steps for RSDP release of materials, and I'll probably end up pushing some of those dates back. So, so let me. I'm gonna stop sharing. Or wait, no. I will. You'll get to see how awesomely unorganized my drive folder is here. All right, so basically the materials that we have that I'll be sharing out are, the process doc, the audit form, which we have created, and by we, I mean Rick in Molly's office has created an amazing version of the audit doc that blows my mind that he's so skilled. I think that moving forward, doing these entirely digitally with an iPad or skipping the fillable PDF might be an option, but I will send the PDF, or you all are shared. And so that's another thing. If you would like them sent, I can do that. If just having access or a reminder of the link would be valuable, I can do that too. So maybe I'll open up the group and see what all you might prefer. Don't everybody at once.
Swan, I couldn't understand what your second option was. What did you say? Could you repeat that?
Oh, okay. These files and these folders are shared with you.
Okay.
And they were during the audit, and so you still have access to them. If you would like, I can just resend the link so that it's, kind of top of your email, or I can actually send some of these things in like a PDF or a document via email or drive.
I think resending the link would be great.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm not trying to decide this for everybody. But
That's what I was thinking too. Just
Yeah.
resend the link.
Okay. And that will include also all the discussion notes in the raw form and everything. And then in that correspondence, I'll also have the PowerPoint that I'm giving today. And let's maybe just go into discussion, and I'm hoping that Molly can take some notes. I don't
Yes.
see. Okay.
Just gonna ask Swan, could you give me a link to the agenda, or I don't think I have a copy of it. I was just gonna try to take notes there or somewhere that we've got
Yeah.
that effect.
Let me. Sorry, everyone's gonna see.
now we get to see how you organize things.
There we go.
Looks pretty organized. I'm impressed.
Others projects as a folder. There we go. Obviously have a few files here for this.
Wrap-up meeting agenda.
Yeah, where do you see that?
About like a third of the way from the top.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. Nice. Thank you, Swan.
Yeah, no, thank you. Now I'm gonna push this down to here, and then I'm gonna stop share so that we can kind of focus on each other in Zoom land. And our gallery. All right. So what went well in the audit process?
Was it May that we did this? I'm just trying to remember. Okay,
It wasn't.
it wasn't May?
Was it, or was it
No,
June?
I'm saying it wasn't me. I
Oh.
didn't do it.
Oh.
Kathy.
Oh, I thought it was May.
I think May sometime, yeah, because we had to delay it. Okay.
Mhm.
It's really hard to remember.
I know. So,
Honestly.
you might not get a ton of response, but and I'm going to get on the road and listen to you guys via my phone and plug it in. But I wanted to, and I thought that
Sure.
process of taking given the circumstances that we were in already COVID, I thought taking the pictures, reviewing them was really helpful. And there were a lot of them. So I think that was helpful. I think I know it was really hard for you because there was so much information to cram into a short period of time, but I also think
Right.
having it into like a 4-hour and then the next day 4 hours, because there's no way in heck we could have done maybe we did it less. Did we do it in 3 hours?
We did it in less. Yeah,
Yeah, I
think
thought it
we
was manageable because it was not, and I do 9 Zoom meetings now in a row. I'm like
Yeah.
ready to die by the end of the day. So it's like,
I'm over Zoom, and so it doesn't
yeah,
matter.
so it would have been, I think the process was good in that we broke it up for one co-op one day and another co-op the second day.
Okay.
The
So that
instructions,
worked out.
I completely agree with that.
I thought
So
the
there's some
instructions were
continuity.
extremely clear, by the way. The instructions were very, very clear.
Okay, that is really good information to know, and because I would like, I want to release materials for doing this digitally and also doing it face to face to have multiple options for people at, Because there is a lot of benefit to having like a sister store that may be a similar size and a specific, maybe in Michigan, but maybe their community is similar in terms of demographic and their store personality is similar, and they may have met at a, co-op conference or whatever and hit it off and thought, hey, let's form this, not maybe coalition like what you all have, but partnership for sure. So, and you're right, Cheryl, it was difficult because there's a lot of material that had to be cut.
So with that said, I also want to add that I think that worked really well from my perspective was having someone with as much knowledge around staging, around grocery store sort of expertise. So if two people met at a conference and wanted to do this because they had the materials, I also think what worked really well was having a third-party partner that actually knows this industry, because I'm going to completely be very raw honest. I did not appreciate all the strengths that you brought to this, Swan, before the audits, because I'm thinking, how complex can this freaking be? It's grocery stores, for crying out loud. I mean, I learned a lot, and that expertise, it would be very easy for an arrogant older woman to devalue and underappreciate that expertise of which I'm guilty. So I appreciated the knowledge.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your appreciation. And I'm glad my years in grocery service were for naught, because I definitely did do my time. And that is, I think, a really valuable point that I hope Molly captures in the notes as well, because I think that there may be an opportunity to save money on hiring someone to do that work, or maybe there can be someone that is brought in that isn't maybe your typical consultant, but someone that has higher level of experience or does other, somehow would be a good fit to lead, facilitate, or provide another level of experience or expertise. So I think that that's a really good point, and that's not something I had put into my thinking on how this could live on, because I kind of wanted to, this can have its own life and without me, and I'd like that, teach a man to fish kind of thing. But I do understand that it is important to have somebody with a lot of experience. And I have historically come from stores where there is tiers of management and that do have that experience, that have 20, 30 years, a general manager that's gone from store to store, and so it's good to know that in smaller stores throughout greater Minnesota, that might not be the case. And store owners or general managers might come with a lesser level of experience, equal passion, but so thank you. I appreciate that. And then I'm wondering, did you think the discussion was enough and productive?
I thought it was from my point of view, and came away with many ideas, and I just felt like we had adequate time. So
good. And was there anything that you felt was missed that we could improve on in the future in terms of the facilitation and what we covered? I'll just go ahead and start.
well, I guess one thing for me that was tricky after the fact was communicating what I'd learned to the manager. And so that communication link was the part that was tricky for me. I pretty much summarized things and gave kind of high and low points, but wasn't quite sure of how to do that.
Good, and I think this will be helpful too once I get into that piece of the presentation, but I know it's kind of after the fact a while, and it's hard to remember all the details. And probably in, you know, if this were a 1 day for each audit, or what has typically been done is a day and a half for each audit, 3 days for 2. But then the team gets really tight, and there's that end part where you like recap, and there is someone taking notes and capturing that and like the top level points for everyone to take back. So so yeah, that is pretty valuable in the process. I think there could have been more focus on the staff, but that's really hard to do when we weren't in face-to-face, you know, the customer service piece and the whole live feel of being in the environment was just challenging. Yeah, I think we could have gotten a little bit more into the demographics of the community and doing a deeper dive into you know, how merchandising in the store can reflect that in a greater degree. And that would have been yet again something in context, because when you're in a group setting, you're meeting off-site to go out to eat, and you're kind of infusing yourself with the community and getting a feel. You're driving in, you're seeing it, and all of those things are what, you know, a face-to-face audit can really do. And I want to make sure, or to emphasize, that those things are important to leave in if you do a face-to-face audit into the future. Those are very important aspects of an audit overall that shouldn't just be skipped because we had to skip it this time. All right, I guess I'm gonna.
I really like that point you made on the importance of looking at the demographics in the community and how that could be, you know, a strong focus for merchandising priorities. And I'm wondering, you know, to your point there, do you have suggestions for how the stores might dive into that a little bit deeper moving forward, if that's something that's really important to them and they feel like, well, this is an exercise we could really dig into? Are there tools?
Yeah, I'm hoping to get into that more. I did send homework to the stores to fill those things in, but I don't think that part of it was done. And that would have been a launch pad for those discussions. But since those pieces were kind of skipped by the group at large, then I didn't go into them. Yeah, I don't think I can go into the specifics necessarily without looking at, you know, the list. But it just really looks at the community level of like what are the ethnicities, you know, and looking at faith communities as well, and all, you know, all the different, and then taking an honest look at whether or not you have that reflected in your membership or not, and if not, you know, there can be dialogue on, you know, how to loop other people in, and, you know, it can be a variety of different things that, you know, we touched on in the first presentation, like store hours sometimes can cut out whole people that maybe work at a packing plant, or and just happen to be like almost all, you know, all of the, you know, the Mexican workers that are in the community, like work there, you know, or it could be other things. You know, like I know Cheryl's big on the multilingual signage and that kind of thing, but that really just depends on the makeup of the community. I would never say have multi-use signage if, you know, that you've only got 5% of, you know, another non-native English speaking thing, because that actually inhibits the process for native English speakers that may have disabilities, and which would be a higher percentage overall. So you wouldn't want to create more verbiage and language that, So anyway, I think that, there's a lot that can be done in that piece, and I can send a follow-up too. I think I have the file of those questions, so I can include that in the materials, and I'll make sure to include that in RSDP's kind of materials as well, as like how to do the initial setup before the audit and come in with the information that that you may need, like how many members, what's our history, what's our growth been like, what was our sales 5 years ago as opposed to now, are we going up, are we plateauing? Those are all kinds of things that would be good to know going into a visual audit, because then you got that information and the backstory to kind of see, particularly I guess for someone with experience, like I can sometimes tell that a store isn't doing well financially by how things are merchandised, because there's either holes in the merchandising, or they have too much inventory is often the case, because they're not moving through it. And so for someone with experience, having that backstory information is really valuable, not just for the demographic and the community piece, but also the store sales and sort of that financial vitality and sustainability, as a business piece. Is there anything else we want to discuss about the process before I dig into some of the results?
I know my first set of answers somehow got lost.
Yes.
I don't know. And so I know that when I tried to recreate that, it was much briefer because I didn't have, at that point, another couple hours or so to try to go through everything, probably 4 hours to go through everything again. I just didn't
Yep.
at that point in time.
I
So
know what happened, and it was the fact that it was a fillable PDF, and the instructions said to download that PDF and save it to your actual machine, and that's real vital in the step.
And I actually did that.
If you open it, you can open it and fill it without actually downloading it, and I did the same. So
I actually did do that.
you're not alone. Yes, you can fill out the
I downloaded it, saved it, and then put it in. And some still can work, and I don't have a clue what happened. But I felt quite badly that my answers were pretty brief the second time around.
I think that's okay. Overall, we're looking at a snapshot across multiple people, and I think all the insights will, be valuable. But we should note that too, in terms of like clarity of just directions, because I actually didn't even follow my own directions, and they ended up filling out the fillable PDF without downloading it, and then I had some deleted. Luckily, I hadn't gone through the whole thing, but it was stressful. And then so I think having a document either that's live and either through Drive might be an option if we have Wi-Fi in the stores and whatnot. So that's a good point. Is there anything else that came up that were hiccups? I know Arlene had mentioned in the past something about the text boxes and the text size and things like that, but those have all been that's all been fixed with the new versions, and we'll probably do like an even finalized version of that moving forward. That'll be really clean and easy to use. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and kick into the presentation. Is it okay if I don't go in presentation mode? It takes over the bottom screen that I have to. Is this okay? Can people see the main slide? Awesome.
Sorry, can we see what's one?
You can see the main slide okay without me going into presentation mode. If I go into presentation mode, it does just show the slide, but then I lose the picture of you all down on my other screen, and I kind of like to be able to see if you're following along or if people look confused or if it's a good time to stop and have discussion. So Zoom is not real good at presentation mode in my mind. It's a big downfall of it. So if it's okay with you, I'll just do it in this view. All right, so just a recap of like what we did. So we did co-op peer-to-peer metrics, that the metrics that matter. So we were looking not just at a traditional audit that looks at, are the floors clean, is the rug in good condition, is there chipping paint on the outside, but we're really looking at deeper level of metrics that that look at environmental and social responsibility, how to co-create value within the community. And within the community, I mean community members, other businesses, and you know, other development organizations, and growing the community, embracing diversity, strategic use of data and technology. I think this is a piece that actually kind of got cut, and could be a focus for some stores moving forward. And customer service 2.0, like, you know, what can we do, like the next level to really differentiate our stores in terms of giving customer service. It's not enough that we, you know, say that we're member owned, but it's, you know, going that next step and not even, you know, walking the walk, but let's talk the walk that we're already walking and sing it out both on social media and in the stores, and that's an important thing overall. So the information that was going to be gathered before the audit was the co-op missions and values statement, information about local competition, store financials, a list of local producers and local business collaborators, and goals that are already set for projects currently in the works. And we did discuss this last one, particularly when it came to Crow Wing, you know, since they were in the process of a relocation. I think we definitely could have hit more on store financials, demographics, and competition. But that's kind of like, that's up to the co-ops to do the work, you know, so because I don't have access to the store financials myself. So, so those pieces are really, I think, important if you were to do the audit again, to not skip those, because they are informative in the audit process. And just to give a bit about the scoring, we scored on 1 to 5 based on critical assessment. Now we did do a weird kind of thing, and I think I may relook at how we did that. So if there was something that we thought that the store should have, but they were doing poorly, you could give them a 1. And then if you thought that, you know, it wasn't an expectation that you'd have in-store seating for a store size, you know, it just didn't make sense at all, you could put an X. Or if you didn't know from pictures, if you could answer the question, you could put an X. And moving forward, I would do away with the X overall, because what happened in the actual thing is like maybe 4 people put X's, and maybe, you know, 2 or 3 people scored. And what that meant is those scores really swung the, they had the ability to swing. So if someone said a 5 and the person said a 1, then, you know, then it's a 3, but it doesn't really show you what's going on as a score. So I'll probably do away with that X feature, because I think it's just important just to do score 1 through 5, and leave like not available or some option if, you know, they don't have a bike rack or whatever. So I don't think we need to go too much into the scoring part. Oh, I love this quote. Gotta love some mixed martial arts. Okay, so the big thing when you're looking at your stores is that you really can't worry about the stuff you can't control. You need to focus on getting where you need to be and not worry about what could have been and what should have been. I also find it amazing that he said that. I'm not gonna judge. But it's really important because sometimes when you're in the thick of scoring and you're looking at scores as a store, you're like, oh my gosh, this is such a small thing. And, you know, this really, you know, was a zinger for us. Like, but that's why an audit's valuable, is because those small things often they become institutionalized. You come in every day, you don't realize that the rug it's curled at the edge and it's a tripping hazard to somebody. You don't think about those things over time, and that's why an audit is valuable. So it's important to, you know, to look at those things and as good opportunities and simple opportunities and say, awesome, someone caught this for us and that is only like $20 for us to fix, versus, you know, getting, you know, down in the dumps about, you know, my store, you know, could have done better on the audit had only we had gone through and front faced or some small thing. So moving on to the high scores for Crow Wing, it was parking, which I note here at the first, because that may be an issue for them moving forward. And so it's always good when you're doing a relocation to say, well, what were the great things about our old location and what are going to be the challenges? So you want to mitigate those challenges moving forward and say, okay, well, maybe we don't have parking, but we got parking vouchers, or we have a partnership with another business. And to utilize their parking, or, you know, maybe that's a conscious decision that we're going to have, but we're going to have like, you know, a 20-foot, you know, row of bike racks. So, you know, whatever you're going to do, it's good to know what you're losing when you're moving to a new location, because it's not always a win in every situation or scenario. And in this point, parking might be a future issue for them moving forward, that you don't want to just avoid that and think, you know, that's not a big thing. No parking has done, you know, under plenty of businesses. So merchandising also got high scores, particularly in product assortment that enhances the store brand, ready to eat and convenience categories, gluten-free, vegetarian, specialty items, and I don't know what I was going to say here about well-stocked and, you know, neat and tidy probably. Bulk department. I think the things with Crow Wing that were really, you know, spot on with their merchandising are things that they can build on and improve in a new location. And that's a perfect example. It's not where you want to minimize, you want to build on that. And if ready to eat and convenience categories are an awesome thing that they were hitting on in their last location, then they should be looking at expanding the square footage of their ready to eat convenience categories for the future location. Because it's so much easier for any store to build upon what you're doing well than it is to focus on what you're not doing well. You can spend half the effort on improving what you're doing well and get more sales and promotional lift than if you focus on what you're not doing well. And that's, you know, it's just the reality. Store hours, they're open every day. That resonated with every one of us that were scoring. And that is, you know, don't underscore the importance of parking and store hours. They're very important for the community. And they can be an easy thing to fix. They might not be, but store hours, I mean, you gotta be open at the right times. Evidence and support for area businesses and nonprofits. I think that was in, you know, the case of a bulletin board and how, you know, kind of what they had, you know, in terms of like a visual to, to show that. And then customer service was another big one, greeting on entry, knowledgeable staff, and checkout, for all things that Crow Wings stored particularly high in. So the positive comments were about open daily, parking, chalkboards, focus on organic, and that might have not even have been about how much organic product they had. It's just, if there's a big sign that says organic, that's going to resonate with people. And then of course, if you have it to back it up, then that's the authentic co-op way, right? So it's not like a smoke and mirror strategy where you walk into Whole Foods and they say local, and it's not really. So that's not what I mean, but it is important to sing what you're doing in an authentic way. No Minnesota nice in merchandising. And then interior colors are fun and bright. And I think overall there were more comments like that. And that is really important too, because they're moving to a new location. They may, the intuition may be to sophisticate it up and go for a new look, a new theme. And you can do that, but sometimes you can alienate your members. When you do a remodel or when you spruce things up, customers have a sense of home and a sense of co-ownership in this space, and it's important that that they feel at home in the new location too, and they'll adjust to the new location. Believe me, some of the other crappy stuff, like they'll appreciate new cooler cases and all that. It's not, they're never going to be like, oh, I wish we had that old red display. But something about the look and feel, it might be something to pay attention to, bright splashes of color or something that make this co-op stand out as unique. So the low scores, whoops. And this is where it's kind of shocking, but I wanted to bring it up. So overall, the category of community engagement and store service was low. But when I looked at the scores, I could see why. So for example, one of the metrics in here is indoor seating. Well, 4 people that were scoring thought a store this size doesn't need to have in-store seating, so I'm going to give it an X. 1 person thought, actually, we need store seating in here and they're not doing it. We're going to give them a 1. And 1 person thought, it's just average for whatever. But that really swung the score overall to be quite low. And the presence of customer feedback cards was the same kind of similarity. 1X, 1X, 1, 4. Kind of was like how it went, played out. With, customer feedback cards are kind of tricky. If you can mount them to a wall, that's awesome because it doesn't take counter space. There's ways to, have like office stuff where you just take the paper and it's like off to the side. By the bulletin board is a great place to kind of keep it neat and tidy, and not so much at checkout where you don't want people loitering while other people are getting checked out, writing their comments about what they want to see at the co-op. Dollar roundup at checkout. I think they weren't doing that, and the group really thought that they should be, and that they should be they were zinged in the scoring. Community facts, stamps, and other services scored low at both stores. And this is something to bring up, which I think for Crow Wing is probably, I would think if I was at Crow Wing and I would be like, so what? We don't have that. We're not going to have that. We're going to have we're at our new store. We're going to have in-store deli seating. We don't even care about providing fax and stamps, because our membership isn't looking for that. And we're downtown. There's an office store 2 doors down or whatnot. We're not filling a unique need in the community here. And so why do we even want to, use our resources on this. It's going to be flipped when we get to ideal grain. But it's while we're on the crowing slide. So competitively priced options are available in each category. They got zinged on that. There were high overall, and we talked about that high-low strategy in a category where you just can't alienate certain shoppers. Like moms aren't gonna want to see $7 peanut butter. It's gonna turn them off to the whole store if they see that. So on a few things that are really key, you need to match price with the competition or provide a good deal, on certain things, and don't just think that it's going to be in bulk. That, oh, well, because we have it in bulk, because not a lot of shoppers feel comfortable in bulk. Not a lot of shoppers think it's clean. There's a lot of reasons why people may not want to get a good deal in bulk. Maybe they're buying it for a relative and have to drop it off, or, the time constraint. There's so many reasons that bulk isn't just the low price solution. It needs to be in the set in grocery as well. Promotions are present, seasonally appropriate, and signed. I think this was lacking primarily because they didn't really have much store space, given their volume of sales. But promotions are king in retail, and you don't have to reduce the price to do a good promotion. I've been duped many times in Whole Foods Market when I walk by one of those beautiful displays of whatever they got going on, 2 compliments. It can be chips and dip. It can be, new nut milk and some groovy grain-free cereal, whatever. A sign says, pick up 2 for dinner. And I'm like, oh, okay. Busy moms, people, they're looking for solutions to their shopping needs. So, if pasta and sauce are on an end cap together and it's, next to a thing of a baguette bread, you better believe people are just going to be putting it in. And it's because that's another meal they don't need to think about. And it's another meal that they don't have to go and find those things individually in the store. So promotions are more than just, we provide a good price. And that is really important to get out of the head, because we don't need to be giving away food. We don't need to be giving away things for low prices. We need to drop our prices when we're going to lose our customers. But for the rest, we provide solutions in promotions that are going to meet, kind of the needs of a busy shopper. Or give people new ideas. Oh, I never thought about this, I don't know, corn pasta with this unusual sauce. So it can be, people get in ruts too, they shop and I'm a rut shopper all over the place. So I love it when someone's giving me new ideas and promotion, and I often buy in. And then there was a score that really thought that the product mix representation of cultural diversity of the community, they gave 1s to both stores on this. And I don't know, because I don't know the cultural diversity of the community necessarily, to know if that is accurate or not. And there were some X's thrown in there too. So you guys will get the raw scores and you'll be able to see every comment of every reviewer, but they'll be non-identified. So you won't know who was reviewer 1, but you will see the comments and the scoring overall in the master spreadsheet. So some critiques that commenters had to say were that the building exterior, the signage wasn't a favorite, and there was peeling paint. This is perfect when we're going to a new location, don't have to worry about it. But it is important to check your paint pretty regularly overall and just have an eye to your store exterior, because that's so important. If your store exterior starts to suffer, customers just won't come by, and you won't get new customers. You won't get those vacationers the seasonal people, because they'll think that the store looks shabby and so they won't come in. Having that on a regular cycle, if it's yearly, every spring might be a good time when things defrost. Like, do we need to do any outdoor repairs? Is our sign still looking good? Those are things to have on the regular radar. And then shelving is covering the windows. Hopefully they will not do that in the new location. That's kind of a big no-no in grocery overall. Not only because it blocks the light coming in when shoppers just love light and you cannot get enough light in a grocery store, or they like atmospheric light like Kowalski's where it looks like, you know, you're in a gallery. Another reason is that product will go bad a lot faster, including body care. So those natural products will degrade, and so their shelf life is based on not having direct exposure to direct light. And so you can end up in an inventory loss situation when you start putting racks in front of windows. And so that's something to avoid overall. Baskets need a holder. That's such a simple, easy fix. Having the right supplies, that the shopper has an effortless situation, and maybe in the new store, they're gonna have a couple different locations. It's always good to have one at the back of the store, even if your store is kind of medium size, because then, you know, you get those people that think they're just gonna get one or two things, and then, you know, that one or two things ends up being 10 or 12. And if you've ever worked checkout, you hear people say that all the time. I was just coming in to get this, but I got all these other things. Well, if you have a basket at the end of the store for them, or a place for baskets at the end of the store, for those people, you can just encourage more. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Aisles are too narrow. This is like the #1 thing that's done in stores that are smaller. All I gotta say is it's so great that now we have those smaller carts that are just baskets, because back in the day when everything was just supersized carts, there was just no getting around narrow aisles. And that actually is a psychological thing for the shopper that you may not notice, but people can feel confined and stressed in situations where they don't feel like they have enough space to shop, or they feel like they're in people's way. So if they feel like they have to move, oh, I gotta go, that means they're not spending that time making more decisions and buying more products. And those kinds of things are really known in larger chains that have actually looked at aisle width and the impact on store sales. And hands down, the more width you can give, the increase in sales. But to a point, because you also want to have as much merchandise in there as you can get. So product at checking stand is a little cluttered. That was a comment. And I agreed. The checking area should be really clean, and you know, definitely don't have high choice items at that area. Things like, you know, emergency packet or whatever, impulse buy is a little bit of that is okay, especially if it's seasonal, like an emergency thing that might sell, you know, in cold and flu season. But I wouldn't just be putting your entire selection of, you know, mints and candies in that area. And then the garden is in disrepair, and I think I remember them wincing about that. So, but we gotta have some concessions because this was COVID and there was just a lot going on for everybody. And I don't think shoppers were really critiquing the store on the garden at that point. So some discussion highlights that we brought up were that it was a fun store, there's great customer service, and I think this really highlights that our discussion was really reflective of what people actually said and how they scored, because these were definitely the things that came in the doing well in areas and to improve. More promotions doesn't have to, oh yeah, it doesn't have to be on sale. Receiving area and back room, I think overall the thinking is that the area was a little too tight, but that it was clean. And those are just the kind of things when you have a new store situation, you don't want to shortchange your back room, because the happiness of workers and the safety of people in the space are really paramount. And these thinking about how you're going to rack your product. Is it going to be, you know, we're going to do category bins where we put extra in a bin and you pull out the bin and then you can stock it daily, or we have a system, because sometimes things can end up going bad in the back room if there isn't like good practices for how you're going to clear it out. And those good practices should probably keep, you know, safety and organization in mind. And then mix match of urban branding and store decor. Oh, so a mismatch. Yeah, and so that's just thinking about what is the look and the feel of the store. Are we fun and sleek and modern, or are we like a country store with you know, like a home-like feel? And neither is wrong or right, and every community is going to have something different. But just stick in your lane, because you start putting too many things out and then you lose this cohesive look and feel for the store, and the personality doesn't really come out, and it becomes a kind of a free-for-all on the sales floor. And those are just also subconscious things that it's not that the shopper is like noticing them. It's that when they're done right, they shop there more and they buy more. So something to keep in mind. And then need for pricing strategy was an area to improve. All right, so on to Ideal Green. In terms of high scores, Ideal Green Market got high scores in parking, exterior building condition, and external signage and lighting. Just really was an attractive store overall. Seemed inviting and easy to access. It was also noted that the ramp was more accessible. Clean flooring, that's always a great thing to score high in. You may not be able to do anything about new shelving because it's expensive, but clean flooring is important not only for the look of the store, but also for safety. Spills are like the #1 lawsuit in grocery stores overall. Someone slips and falls, particularly coffee in the bulk section. So something to keep in mind, because coffee beans are really slippery and people. And then local merchandise is clearly identified, represented in multiple departments. I mean, I think Ideal Green is like hitting this. I mean, that big sign that says local, I mean, you can't get in the store without seeing that. It's like, we are that. It's very much becomes like the store identity then. And I think local, identifying local is as a key differentiator for co-ops moving forward. And I think that's a really important and a great thing to score high in. There's clear evidence of support of community businesses and nonprofits, and that, so local isn't just about our local merchandise, but local is about our local support of other businesses and nonprofits. So we're in it together, and we're strategizing with other business entities. You know, you are the site of a farmer's market. I mean, that's could be seen as competition. It very much is, probably in season. So, but that to say we care more about our members having access to fresh and local food, that we're willing to, like, you know, maybe take a little hit on sales to, you know, say that this is a value to us and our membership. I mean, that itself is like clear support of, you know, other community businesses. And then the community artwork was undeniable, that was a real presence in the store, and seen as a positive overall. And overall, the shelves were front-faced, and that's awesome. So most of the stores that I've been in have a regular routine of front facing twice a day. And depending on the volume of the store, sometimes you can just do it as you go, you know, if it's just 1 or 2 people coming in, and then you just, you know, take a look. And you know, sometimes you do get a busy hit, and it's, you know, maybe like at 4 o'clock or before the evening rush. It's good to just do a full front face. So the positive comments that came out on the forms themselves were consistent color scheme throughout the store, a cohesive look and feel, excellent curb appeal, external signage is colorful and inviting, handicapped accessibility is better than average with a ramp for the area, nice local signage right when you walk in. So definitely the comments reflected the scoring that was received. Now, some of the lower scores for Ideal Green were bike rack. And I think, was there a bike rack present, or was it just off to the side and maybe we couldn't all see it?
You know, I don't think there is one. No.
Yeah, and someone in the comments said it's not a bike friendly location. And
somewhat. It is somewhat because
yeah,
they have these I forget what they're called, but it's a actual bike. The way they design the roads around there, they have extra wide. What do you call it? Just
lane or
a lane. Yeah, an extra wide side lane for the bikes that actually connect up to the co-op. So it is somewhat bike friendly.
well, I know I'm a distance rider, so for me, 40 miles is something I can do in a day. So
Wow.
I value a bike rack a lot because I have an expensive bike, and I won't take it to somewhere if I don't have a place to park it.
Yeah.
So that may or may not, depending on the store location, you know, the co-op may say, you know, investing in a bike rack, you know, isn't, I think overall co-ops tend to be, co-op shoppers tend to also be walkers and bike riders and healthier people, because what we're stocking is more, you know, organic and natural and specialty diets. And so having some small bike rack or some place that says lock your bike here, even if it's not an official bike rack, or, you know, some, you know, way for cyclists to, you know, be able to store their bikes. And maybe theft is just never a thing in the area, and like, oh, well, we'll just keep it off the side and go in and out. That can be a real thing too. I mean, I grew up in Iowa and I never even locked my car until my dad told me I had to. I moved up here, so so I get it. And those are things that you need to take in context of the store. Effective use of cross merchandising. So this is in the low scores. So cross merchandising is something that could be improved. And I think the things that were brought up are maybe putting some of those local items, working them into the set so that they have more presence overall. And I think this kind of speaks to the promotions being present, seasonally appropriate and signed. And that itself, you know, having some kind of promotional presence is across merchandising, because you get, you know, things from different categories pulled in, and kind of a feeling of interest, and that you're maintaining relevance, so to speak. So, you know, if you come in and it's, you know, spring and you've got pumpkins, it's not really, you know, it isn't speaking to the season. But if you do, you know, every 2 weeks or at least once a month, look at what you have and what's seasonal, I think that's just helpful for the membership and sales overall. In-store seating or community room, I think a couple of reviewers, or at least one, thought that in-store seating could be a possibility in that size of space. I have not been into the store, so I haven't really seen how that would work out. I think the thinking was that there was coffee mugs, and there was the wondering, well, how are people going to stay and drink there? And so maybe there was just a confusion on what that would look like.
Indoor seating has come and gone at the co-op, back and forth, depending on just the way they arrange things. But we have had it at times in the very front of the store when you come in, and it's used sporadically. But that's something that, because of the location, people do come in sometimes and ask if we have coffee. And I've always wondered, you know, how that would go if we did have more places for people to visit. After COVID, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the caveat. Well, that's good to know, and that's good to know that his history of weaving it in and out. It's kind of a balance because you don't make any money on store seating, and so often merchandisers like me that have gone around nationally have reduced in-store seating because it's not revenue generating. But if you have too little, then people don't tend to want to congregate, or they don't think of the co-op as a place to go to run into people and chat it up. And if there is a little bit of that, and they start to have their community based in that business, then store sales do increase. So it's kind of a balance, and I don't think there's a right or wrong answer for that, but it did score low in the scoring overall. Community fax, stamps, and other office services. Well, you know, I think the perfect example of where Pro Wing, you know, might not want to be an office store because there's probably an office store real close by. This kind of category might actually be a benefit to Ideal Green, and looking at, you know, can we do a little hardware section, fishing, and do those seasonal merchandising opportunities. You don't want to over assort, so you don't want to, you just want to have key things that people may need, and you don't want to buy a lot of them because then you get stuck with old inventory. But things like stamps, I mean, or, you know, envelopes, or, you know, just postcards for people to write home. Look at this awesome community of Pequot Lakes that I'm in. It's so beautiful here. Yeah, I would just think that, you know, and it may not be a fax, you know, do people do faxes anymore? So these are, you know, that may be outdated, but think about what kinds of extra things that can be added. And because you are in a remote location and you don't have all of these things real close by, maybe you can fill the need at the community in a larger way. And then community garden or native landscaping, I think that was sort of like maybe thinking like that was in the plan for 2020, and could be an opportunity overall, given that you have a little bit of space there in the back, maybe.
We do have it, Swan. It got put together this year.
Oh, you do?
Yes. And
oh, good.
I could send you a picture. It's actually, they did a great job. It's just beautiful, really. So, yeah.
And people were really into it.
They did really well. I just was impressed so much that I couldn't believe it. But they put in these freestanding raised garden beds, and just some beautiful climbing apparatuses and things, and it just really was amazing to me. Yeah, for the first year, I couldn't believe it. It's all fenced in, so the deer don't get it, and so it's off to a really good start.
Cool.
Yes.
Awesome.
That was really fun.
Stitch it like a hot potato if nobody comes. I don't let the community garden tank forever. So some communities, they love the community garden, members come. Some of them just let it die out, and, you know, it's kind of a burden on the store, and you feel like, oh, we got to get people motivated to come to the community garden. It's okay to say, you know, our community had a life with the garden, and right now nobody really wants to do it. So we're gonna put it to rest this year. And then if you put it to rest, then inevitably in a couple of years, someone will be like, let's have a community garden, and they can do it again. And we can have the ins and outs of community like that in a co-op that is really kind of unique, and you can kind of do that. But I see so many that are like burdened by the garden, and you can quickly make the decision, well, after a year of unsuccessful gardening or whatever, we're gonna postpone it for next year until somebody really comes forward that wants to take it on. And it looks like I'm kind of I'm rambling on with time, so I'm gonna move it along. So donation of cold produce or bakery to food shelf, if that's an option, take it. It's just another thing, and make sure that you sing it, and maybe even weigh those items and say, you know, as a metric, we donated this many pounds of food to the local food shelf this last year. So then instead of it just becoming a liability and a write-off and a loss, it becomes value added to the community in terms of a measurable amount. And then evidence of fire security safety plans. I think there was a fire extinguisher on the ground. So just keep that in mind, that those OSHA standards and all that are kind of so important to maintain, especially when you are in a volunteer environment. Sometimes volunteer run doesn't necessarily have the same mind of like how we are as a legal business and how we are in terms of liability as us paid staff would. And then I'm gonna keep going. Critiques, fire extinguisher on the floor. Staff isn't clearly identified by name tag. That could be an opportunity, maybe not. Maybe it could be just rolled into the dialogue of, hey, when we're great people, we say our name, you know, hey, I'm, you know, Swan, and let me know if you need anything. That is identifying yourself enough as, you know, as a name tag or a t-shirt would. T-shirts can add camaraderie, and honestly, when people work, they like t-shirts sometimes because then they don't get their other clothes dirty, and so it's could be used. Counter space is a bit high for customers to put product up on onto. That would have been probably an issue for me since I'm real short, and could be an issue for accessibility, but as long as you're, you know, offering the customers, if they're struggling, then I don't see, it's a smaller store and not high volume, so I don't think it's worthy of investment. But store layout improvements, vertical merch versus horizontal, and that's what we talk about, looking at a grocery set from top to bottom, like this is going to be main meal, so this is going to be, you know, our Indian meals and our Italian set, you know, things. It's versus having them run along a long row of sets, so that if someone wants to shop pasta sauce, they have to walk, you know, 12 feet along the top shelf. And customers don't do that. And if they do, then they don't go back, and so they don't really think like that. So, and that's a free thing that you just, you know, spend a little time looking at how are we going to fit this in the section to merchandise it a little bit tighter. The no cross merchandising, or at least it wasn't seen in some of the photos. Gluten-free could be better identified. I don't know if that is true or not. Some stores do little tiny signs to designate what's gluten-free. Some people put a section. Most stores are moving away from the dedicated section to gluten-free. If you want to do that, maybe just a shelf or two, but I wouldn't, because most things when in each of the sets, you should have a gluten-free option in each category. You know, gluten-free chip, a gluten-free pasta, gluten-free, you know, because so many people are now. Consider grouping artworks for sale together so that people think of it as like a gallery for sale versus I wouldn't want to buy something that looks like it's part of the decor. And that may be helpful to selling more merchandise for local artwork, artists overall. and that sampling could be an opportunity at the desk or elsewhere in the store. I love sampling. And I don't know if I made that comment, but if it's me, I love myself. If it's someone else, I love them. Sampling sells. And let's see. I mean, I think this is all what we talked about. And, you know, it's pretty much reflected in the scoring. I mean, another thing that I think is worth highlighting here is that bulk area and coffee merchandising could be improved. We talked about the cozy feeling is like you feel like you're at the cabin, but maybe you don't want to spend a lot of money when you're at the cabin or your aunt's cabin or whatever. And the fabric may be problematic for cleaning over time, and fabric and merchandising could be a health issue with COVID and all that. So those are things that we brought into the discussion as well that I recall. And so let's talk about communicating all this. So we've got, like, you know, we went through these audits and we have these insights, we have these scores, and now what do we do with it? So communicating to the different audiences is important, and communicating it differently to the different audiences is important too. So communicating the results to staff, first of all, people often forget to do this, or it's downplayed, and it's really important. It's low-hanging fruit. And it's important for easy wins and store improvements like that front facing and the floor conditions and all those things that you know, the basket thing is stocked, you know, and this is a good way that you can reinforce with volunteers or paid staff, hey, we're winning on this. And often if you say we're doing a good job, they further want to do a good job because they realize that this, hey, we scored high in this, like we're awesome and we can keep this up. And on the flip side, it's important to stress those things that are free that we can do that is, you know, a labor responsibility. And so, yeah, these are all like really low hanging fruit that can have a huge impact on a lot of different, you know, things like sales. And it can also, the merchandising section can give buyers new perspective on what kind of assortment they may want to add or bring in, or what do they have too much of, and how they might look at pricing perception. Well, maybe we don't need the new niche cool thing all the time that costs $50, you know, a serving. Maybe what we really need and what's identified in this is like some pantry staples at an affordable price. So those can be really, really good for information for buyers to take away if they're not part of the audit already. Now, communicating results to the board, we just don't even want to go in that like low-hanging fruit category. Like they don't want to be, and they really should not be in the day-to-day dregs of the co-op. And I always think of this as like, there's like store management and then there's the board. And when they start to like commingle, it's like, you know, I don't know, there's a reason there's like separation of church and state. And an overactive board in operations can be a bad thing. But what they should know about is policy making, financial responsibility, like are we hitting the long-term vision of the store? Does this audit highlight where we've gone awry and where we've gone off? Are we not legally compliant with our fire, you know, code, or and, you know, do our policies, are they discriminatory towards staff and those kinds of things? And then they may be also interested, and hopefully they're interested in what is the competitive advantage of the co-op. And so those environmental and social responsibility metrics and factors that really impact vision and the mission statements.
Swan, can you hear me?
Yep.
So for the board, just an idea or thought, and I wonder what you think about it, is if it were me running a co-op, I would probably put together a quick little plan that says these are the things I want to do in the next 30 days, and they'd be all free, and the staff and the co-op manager would agree to those things. keep in mind, sometimes the board members are the staff. And so there's that mix occasionally. But I would probably take a vision to the board of, this is what we want to do in the first 30 days that don't cost us anything. This is what I want to do in the next 3 to 6 months that might take an investment. And here's what I'd like to do long term, because ultimately the board makes a lot of decisions around authorization of use of funds too.
Right,
Through
right.
their strategic direction. And so if there's going to be strategies that the board then will look at and say, hey, this makes sense. Of course, I would also put an estimate of how much each of those things are going to cost, so that
Right.
we have an idea, and then get their authorization on that, so that as staff are out trying to secure funds to potentially do those things that are in the more long-term strategies that cost dollars, that they might have to look for external investments from, whether those are donation or grants, etc., that
Yeah, a
they
fundraising event.
right.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think this is all really great. I think this is relevant. The layer that I probably would have removed is that short term, what I'm doing with staff. But I come from a historical being in, co-ops that are, 40 million a year, or I don't even know what the wedge makes now. So you don't want to have necessarily a lot of operations information passed to the board. But definitely if something's on there, like we noticed the cold cases aren't keeping temp, we want to buy a new something, or these are the small wares, this is like the budget that we want to spend on things in the next 3 months of improvement, and then this is our long-term vision and what we would need financially to get there. Absolutely, I think you hit it on. Like having that kind of staged approach with the board is really effective. And I don't know if I was going to cover that in my action plan. I think the next slide over, but that's fine. The board is important to communicate with, and it's important not to hide anything relevant to the board. I've seen that done too. Doesn't usually play out well. So communicating to member owners is a completely different message. Don't share the audit scores with member owners. They don't need to know the scores at all. So just the top level insight, but really focus on the positive. Aren't we doing great? Especially highlight the things that member owners don't normally see as assets. Like it turns out that Ideal Green is in a great location. We have great opportunities because of our location. It's not that we're isolated and that we're limited in sales. It's actually, this can be a great thing, and if we can expand on it, we can reach a greater diversity of the community that we have here, or we can meet greater needs in the community. So I think those kinds of things, because that gets people thinking, member owners thinking, beyond what they interpret the co-op being, and where is their vision, and I think it's really a good thing to communicate those kinds of things to the member owners. So share about low scores in the context of your intended actions to improve. And I think that really can go for the board too. You want to use your audit as validation for capital expenditures like new shelving, POS, etc. And I think I put this as member owners because a lot of times the member owners, they're like, well, those are my funds. I own the co-op. I don't think we need new shelving. So, use that information to kind of back the position. And that's why, honestly, audits are really valuable. Because it gives you some credibility outside of just what management is saying. Audit to open dialogue about relocating. Oh yeah, sometimes it highlights, hey, the co-op just isn't in a good place. Like we need to move it. you know? And that's a tough thing for co-ops to go through, is whether or not they should relocate, because it's a big expense. Remember that members are diverse, and they may have diverse interpretations and diverse ideas for how to problem solve. So membership is not always perfectly aligned. We are at time, and I have about 5 minutes left. So if you can hang with me, great. If you need to drop off, I totally get it and understand. We are in a back-to-back Zoom world sometimes. But creating an action plan. So number 1, define the end goal. 2, identify the resources needed. List the steps necessary. Prioritize those tasks and delegate responsibility. I think this is often overlooked because if you don't actually have that implementation plan, the steps don't matter and the goal is never going to be achieved. So you have to delegate the responsibility of who's going to be responsible and put dates to things. And that's the next step, add deadlines to those goal dates. Not just the goal dates, but the delegating the responsibility. And then monitor the progress, evaluate and update. And those would be, you know, you could do that with the board, you could do that in staff meetings, or, you know, post a little update, you know, on the staff back cooler or whatever, how you communicate, if you send emails to the group or whatever. It's important just to check in, hey, we had this goal of we're going to be, you know, doing this, you know, merchandising reset, and we're going to do it, you know, we're not going to do it all at once or whatever, we're going to do it over time. And so however you stage it, just be consistent with following the actions necessary. And then this is just a reminder, why are we even doing audits? So, you know, they collectively shape a regional standard for store excellence. They provide a current snapshot of performance, and they can be used to track that performance over time. And it's great to see stores improve. It's also good to know, hey, we've slumped. Maybe we're under new management. Maybe we're struggling financially, but now we have an audit 2 years later and it shows. So what are we going to do now? So I think using these over time is really where it really becomes valuable. One snapshot can be valuable, but every 3 years, every 2 years, shoot, if you can do it every year, I would, but it might not be necessary. And then it is an objective method for identifying improvement areas. It allows you to benchmark and provide competitive analysis with other stores in the area. And it can facilitate the identification and the sharing of best practices, which I think we all did in our dialogue, and how you know, how we talked, and, you know, think, oh, well, this is something that I can do in my store, and this is really valuable and easy and cheap to do. And then it can provide a rationale for capital expenditures for remodels, new equipment, budgeting, and all that things, enhance and strengthen grant eligibility. Okay, 3 minutes over. And I love this cat. So I put it on. Anything else?
Thank you, Swan.
Yeah, thank you all.
You're still on. I'm gonna go on mute since I'm driving and let you close this out. Molly, I just want to say thank you to you too for all the work of the partnership to connect us to Swan and doing this work. Wouldn't have been possible without you guys, and I appreciate your partnership immensely. And to the co-ops, this was another long session, but hopefully it's great value and we're able to share it with folks across the state as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. And we will have information will be sent to you, and I think we'll also put it on our website as well, because we have a whole section on our website for all of the Good Food Access Program stuff that we're doing, and this is part of that. So, and we have this recorded in case you want to share this particular session with anybody. Otherwise, yeah, if you have any questions, you can email me or Swan probably, because she is our subject matter expert on this. So yeah, thank you everybody for participating.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Be well.
Thanks, everybody. And thanks, Molly, for taking notes.
Yeah, thank you all. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Good job, Swan.